recording a video here on kind of a 1,000 mile review on this Auburn locker I have in the Ford 9-inch. Now I actually have 2,500 miles on it, and overall I'm not happy with it. It's acting like it's just a solid welded locker, and that's not what I need, because I use it for street use a lot. I mean, those 1,000 miles were put on in the last less than a month, and so that means that I have 1,000 miles of really hard use on my tires, on my differential, on my drive line, and it's not good. I've reached out to Auburn I think 3 times, but I've only left 2 voicemails. Both times haven't got a call back, and it's frustrating. I mean, there's no information out there. It's hard to research. There's a little bit of information in the installation manual, but it's for a Dana 30, where you can see the carrier, you can see both sides, you can measure your distances, you can put feeler gauges in there. I'm gonna rip this back apart, and I'm gonna show you exactly why you can't test it and why it's so frustrating. But what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna end up tearing it completely back apart. The carrier, the ring and pinion, all that's gonna be torn apart. And I'm gonna put a different carrier in the rear end, and hopefully that combination of drivers, thrust washers, and all that is gonna fix this problem. But right off the bat, I gotta say, not happy with it. I would recommend just going with a full carrier of some type, whether it's a True Track or a Grizzly locker of some sort, or whatever that is the whole carrier in one. You're gonna be much better off. I would say at this point, don't waste your time. But I'm gonna put it all back together, and I'm gonna see if I can get this thing to work, and then maybe we can, second half of this video, maybe we'll have a different opinion. But for now, not happy with it. Here we are at the first part of pulling this locker out. I'm gonna get the wheels and adapters pulled off, get the axle slid out, get the drive shaft taken off. I'm gonna try to get this all done in about 5 hours, so I'm gonna have to really get to it. Got the wheels and spacers and drums off. Brakes are looking good, but curious if this is too much play in the axles. So I think we're gonna just need to rip it apart and take a good look at it. Axle came right out once we took all the bolts out, so we're making really good time. It's 8:02, started at 7:50, so 12 minutes to have both wheels, adapters, and axles out. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to take out the drive shaft, drop the 3rd member. Okay, all the bolts, or nuts I should say, are loose. The 2 axles are slid out, so time for the karate kick. Definitely a little dirty, but I don't see any extreme metal yet, so I'll let it finish draining and show you what it looks like. So it's not going good. Trying to just scoop all the oil out of here. So I just go down the sides, because there's this big lip here, and this is usually where you find the metal pieces. And sure enough, there are metal pieces, springs and pins. So that means this locker is obliterated. It will not be going back together. I'm gonna have to do this trip with an open diff and do this whole process again. So that sucks. But I gotta get this thing going. So I'm just gonna put the original, what is it called? Open diff back in it and take it like that. Looks like I'm gonna need to get new axles too, because these axles are not looking happy. They got some really bad grooving in them, and all my axles are in other trucks right now, so I'm gonna have to just let these ride, not abuse the machine for the next 2,000 miles. When I get back from this trip, I'm gonna put a brand new locker in and upgrade these axles. So kind of sucks, but that's the way it goes. So although the locker is messed up, we have plenty of parts. We have multiple Ford 9-inches that I can assemble a open differential together to get this to work. Silver lining is our gear pattern looks great. Not sure what you can see on camera, but it broke in really good. It's got a really good heat pattern on it. Really happy that this is working out for us. So it's gonna have to be an open diff for the next few thousand miles, but you know what? That's gonna be all right with me. Pinion side, non-pinion side. Here's the moment of truth. No real signs of why it didn't work. Let's see, thrust washer can be put down. Let's see if this can come out without turning it over. All right. Probably gonna have to do this with both hands, but I'll get all the parts ripped apart, lay them all out on a towel so we can inspect them. Inspection time. So here we have what appears to be sheared off shim, or I should say pin rather. Here we have a perfectly intact pin, and on the opposite side of that we have, so no springs in there. Here we have the other part of a sheared off shim, or pin rather. Here we have a fully intact spring. There's a spring just sitting in there. Lord only knows which one it came from, likely from one of those. And then here we have a spring turned sideways. So, and this pin is intact. So we have a total of 2 intact pins, 2 broken pins, and 2 intact springs and 2 broken springs. That one might not be broken, but certainly wouldn't reuse it. This spring does have a lip to it. There's a little bit of grease in here. I mean, there's still red grease on this. I mean, I greased it with that red and tacky grease. It's still on there. I mean, you can see that's the red and tacky grease there. It didn't melt out of there. Still in that hole there. I mean, good Lord, what happened to this thing? I mean, the inside is still fully intact. It's like these never rotated even once. And you know, I just can't say what sort of force would cause these pins to snap, but very frustrating to say the least. You know, how many times do you see ratcheting gear sets like this? There's got to be a reason why Auburn's the only ones making them. And just like that, we're back to being losers. Got our open diff in. Time to button this thing back up. Third member is back together. We got our nice tight valve lash. Everything's back the way it was. So I'm gonna get the 9-inch all cleaned up, get all that gasket material off there, and put everything back the way it was. Here's a couple close-up shots of these worn lockers if anyone's interested. This is probably going to be a long-winded wrap-up to this video, but so the locker didn't work. I bought it off eBay from Ron's Machine Service, from their eBay store, and I called them up and I said, look, I've been trying to reach out to Auburn. They haven't called me back. They haven't been answering my messages. Plain and simple, I don't want to put this back in another 9-inch. I'd rather just return it, get my money back, and then buy the upgraded one. And Ron was awesome. He said, yeah, just, I'm not even going to take it back. Just, I'll give you your $200 credits back. Tell me what locker you want and we'll get it sent out. So he knocked $200 off of my my carrier style locker. It's a Torsen style. Haven't put it in yet, but I'm really happy with the quality. I should have done it in the first place, especially once you factor in, you know, the time that your vehicle's down, all the bearings and gaskets, the oil's expensive, and when you're doing it over and over again, it gets pricey. And you got your seals, you have so much stuff that goes into rebuilding these 9-inch, and they're super easy to rebuild, but there's a lot to them. There's a lot of parts to them. So, you know, $200 seems like a great deal to have a locker in your 9-inch, but when you factor in just one mess up or just one thing going wrong, it really just throws everything out the window. You really should just get the carrier style from the beginning. You shouldn't mess around with these lunchbox lockers in a 9-inch. There's just no measuring. And I should probably do a little better video on why you can't measure it, but the carrier is enclosed. You cannot measure anything other than the thrust washer. You can't put shims in to measure your gap on your pins. You can't measure your gap on your couplers. You can't measure your gap anywhere. And I just don't think that it's necessarily a well-designed style of lunchbox locker when you're using your original, I think they're called thrust couplers, which are the spider gears that are part of your planetary. It's just not a good system in my opinion. And I mean, Ron let me keep the locker. I would just need new pins and springs, but I'll tell you, even with somebody giving me a brand new free locker, essentially, I'm not going to run it. I'm probably going to just let it sit on a shelf and just use it as a reminder that it's not a good idea to use these lunchbox lockers. So would I recommend them in anything else? Yeah, sure. Would I recommend using like a Spartan style or something? Probably. I mean, that's what's inside of a Grizzly. So they're very strong. They're great for high horsepower. They ratchet and stuff, which a lot of people don't like. But for me, for my application, I will not trust them again. I will not waste my time with them. So if you disagree, leave me a comment. You know, I'd like to know your side. Maybe you had one work. Maybe you had the same experience. But that's the end of this video. I really appreciate you watching. I'll have another video up on Wednesday. Thank you.